Hi, folks. Jennifer Nelson here, founder of Scout Real Estate. Glad you're listening in. I created Pocket Hours podcast to elevate our game and help us all learn from the best. I have interviewed some of the top producers in our industry about best practices, among many other things. We also tackle industry issues and changes with great conversation from many of our leaders. And the best part is you get clock hours just for listening in. After you have listened to 3 episodes, just email info@scoutrealestate.com to answer a few easy questions for the interview, and you will receive your certificate. Meanwhile, enjoy listening and learning, and go out there and be the agent you would hire. Hello, folks. Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours, and I get to interview today my good friend and really wonderful broker, Shelley Godwin. Shelley and I have known each other for 12 years, and she started way back when I was assistant manager at Windermere and is still there and has a thriving business. But more importantly, she's just someone I respect as a human being, and she does bang at business because she has really good boundaries. You're going to hear about her tricks of the trade for open houses. That's how she built her business, was open houses. So I wanted her to be on the show to talk about that, just about how she built her business with that, some specifics around that. And then lastly, she talks about her real estate reviews and how important those are for creating listings for herself every year. So can't wait for you to hear from Shelley. Here we go. Thank you so much for being on this show. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Shelley Godwin. Hi, Shelley.
Hi.
Shelley and I go way back. Oh my gosh. I was just trying to think about this as I got on this call, because Shelley started her career at the Windermere office, where she still is. And I was assistant manager, I think. I can't even remember. But how many years ago is this? Are we talking?
Oh my gosh. We're hitting 12 years here pretty quick.
Wow. No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and you were one of the first people to interview me, actually.
That's right.
Yeah. And Doug Baldwin. And I had gone into this with a dear friend of mine who's still here too. And she was like, I'm just going to Windermere. I'm like, I got to check everyone else out. Yeah. And it was you and Doug where I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is where I want to be.
That's so cool.
And I'm still here. So
yay.
Here I am.
That worked out. That worked out well. Oh, that's so awesome. And Shelley, just for the listener's sake, Shelley and her family live right around the corner from where I live. And her daughter, Morgan, her youngest kid, walks my little teddy dog, my little terrier, and has for years. And it's just so fun to get to see her pretty often. And that has worked out beautifully. So yay for that.
Yes, totally. And she absolutely we all love Teddy. So
Teddy's pretty lovable. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Boy. He's a good boy.
What did you do prior to real estate for a profession?
Before I got into anything real estate related, I had a medical sales job where I sold insurance, really exciting insurance verification software. Okay. I had 6 states, and the company was based out of Nashville. It was bought by WebMD, and I got married when I had this job, and then I started having children, and that wasn't conducive to raising babies. And actually, I really love the job. I got to go to Indian reservations and a lot of non-for-profit, and I felt like it was actually really loved the job, but wasn't good for the kids. I think when you want to have a good solid marriage too, it's not good to be out of town all the time.
It's true. It's harder for sure.
So it's harder. And so my husband and I quit my job, and he was an attorney, and he quit his job at the same time with little kids. Hindsight's 2020, but we ended up flipping houses. I hate the word flipping, but we did. We ended up buying homes at foreclosure and fixing them up, and ended up keeping a good chunk of them for rental properties. And it was really my husband who said, Shell, you need to get into real estate because you would be so much better than the people we're dealing with when we're selling these homes. And he goes, it's your thing. And I hadn't thought of it necessarily because I was in the mode of, I'm still with these 3 little babies, and what am I going to do? And so I thought about it. I did it. I took the class, and here I am.
Here you are. Gosh, medical sales and then quitting jobs. So you have 3 kids.
Yes.
How old were your kiddos when you started in real estate?
Morgan was 4, Ben was 6, and Will was 7. because
Wow.
we had 3 kids in 3.5 years. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were doing the thing and having kids and just tightly. I like it. So
Hmm.
young kids, and you're taking on a whole new gig of real
Yes.
estate. And Shelley was on the podcast with a couple of other parents as well. We did a whole podcast on parenting and real estating. But I want to spend just for a minute talking about that. For people who are listening to this call saying, I'm new in the business, I've got young kids at home. What was it like to take on a new adventure of real estate and have 3 little ones at home?
Kind of nutty, but in a good way.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I honestly feel like I had a support system around me. I had a significant other who was very much my biggest fan. I had the luxury of our youngest was almost going to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still crazy though, too, because you still have 3 little kids that demand so much of your attention. So I think what you do is you just jump in and ask for help when you need it. I think you just have to do it. And if it's something that you really want to do and you're passionate about it, I think you find a way to do it, ask for help. And you know what? Maybe you're spending that time when your kids are little building your career. So when you have more time, it can be even bigger. I
Mm-hmm.
don't,
Yeah.
I think you have to pick and choose where your priorities are and how you want to do it. It's obvious you can do it because there's so many of us moms that are doing it and dads. I
Right.
mean,
Right. For
so
sure.
mhm.
And I'll say this for the record. I said this on the other podcast too, and I think you know this, Shelley, but you're going to hear it again. You're one person in this industry that I really respect for how you prioritize your time. And I've watched you over the years really say family first. And I'm going to sell houses, but I'm not going to sell a million houses a year, because if I sold a million houses a year, I wouldn't have a relationship with my husband or my children. And that's far more important to me. So I'm going to have a really good business, right? And I'm also going to have these relationships, and those come first. And it's just been cool to watch you flourish in real estate, but also to watch you have just a really cool family and cool relationships
Thank
with your
you.
kids. So yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so you started off. So let's go back to that time. You've got a 4 and a 6 and a 7 year old. You're brand new in real estate. You start into it. Talk to us about those first couple years. Looking back now, yeah, what do you think you did well? Like, I think I would do that again if I started over. And what do you wish you would have done in those first couple years to set yourself up for success?
There's a couple things. I really wish I would have spent time and money on a marketing plan. I look back and I think about fear, where there were certain people that I didn't put in my database where I'm thinking, well, why didn't I do that? That's ridiculous. Honestly, I think I would have marketed myself to more people than I did. I think I would have challenged my insecurities and fears. I really do think I held back on, my social side because I think I'm an extroverted introvert. And sometimes some of those things are challenging for me. And now when I look back, I'm like, what would I have to lose to ask to go out for coffee with someone? Nothing.
Got it. Got
And
it.
I think I could have built my business more that way. And by being an extroverted introvert, I think I built my business going to open houses and things like that.
I love that you just said that you're an extroverted introvert. I
Mhm.
totally, absolutely resonate with that because most people that meet me are like, "Oh, you're such an extrovert," and I'm like, "Well, not really." At the end of the day, I really do gain strength from my alone time or being quiet or whatever. Love
Me
being with
too.
people, and I have to have this, time by myself. But back to your sort of saying, "Gosh, if I were to do it again, I would have not been afraid to tell the people already in my sphere, already in my world. I'm in real estate, and I'd love to figure out how you can support me in burgeoning, having this burgeoning business, and going out to coffee and adding them to my database and marketing to them and inviting them to events and sort of being more open and not afraid to say, I'm a real estate agent. I'm new at this, but I'd love your support. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. Some people can go do that and they're absolutely brilliant at it. I would suggest that you do that. And who cares? And you know what? Everyone knows like 10 or 12 real estate agents. Who
Yep.
cares? They're going to
Yeah.
pick the one they know, like, and trust the best anyways.
Yep. That's true.
And I even look back at some transactions and there's people that I knew fairly well and had come back to me and said, I forgot that you were in real estate. And I'm like, oh my God, the worst.
Yes,
So
that is
that's
the worst.
if I were to say anything to anybody, put your fears aside,
Yeah. Okay.
talk to people about it. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
know what? And if they don't choose you, that's okay. You put yourself out
Yeah.
there. At least they didn't
Yeah.
forget that you were in real estate.
Because that does sting. Yeah. Somebody
Totally.
told me, yeah. Somebody told me years ago to look at your database for people that are also self employed and take them out
Mhm.
for coffee and say to them, how can I support your business? No matter what it is, right? Because we all know people that could, find a way to support them. And inevitably, and this is coming from a true and authentic place, right? Inevitably,
Mhm.
the question back from them will be, and how can I support yours? Right? There's this like, hey,
Absolutely.
we're all entrepreneurs. Let's figure out how to to connect us with people that can help us build our business. So I found that. Okay. So that's something you do differently. What's one thing you look back at those first couple of years and said, I would do that same thing again?
Floor time open houses. Hands
Okay.
down, I really built my confidence level and knowledge of the industry. And don't ever not tour homes. Always continually tour your homes in your neighborhood. And I know a lot of people don't have the resources to do a small farm. I think I would have done that too. I mean, in my
Okay.
neighborhood, well, our neighborhood, there's like 15 of us that live
It's
within
true.
within like a 5 or 4 block radius. But I think I
Hmm.
would have chose, because when I go back and I look at real tours that I really like, know, trust, and respect, they have done some of those things. Another thing I think I would do is choose a non for profit organization that I truly believe in and that I really want to be a part of. And I would just volunteer if you have the time, because I really think it fills your cup. And even if you're not promoting yourself at something like that, you're feeling so good about giving back. And I feel like you give what you get, if that makes sense. So there's a
Yeah,
couple of things
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think I was in the frenzy of small children that were involved in every activity known to man. So I didn't have the perspective maybe, and I probably didn't even have the time, but I
Yeah.
think when they're at school, you can make time.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
those are some things.
Yeah, I took some notes. So I want to dig into each one of those,
Okay.
I think, a little bit because they're all really, really rich. Talk about for just a minute for touring homes. So, what do you think is important outside of the obvious, right? Which is, hey, we should know the inventory. What are the other benefits do you see about getting out there and looking at homes touring?
Say you're at your kid's soccer game and there's a woman talking to you about, oh my gosh, did you see the house on my street? It's for sale. And you could say, yeah, I went through it. And my God, it's turnkey. It's a cream puff. It's amazing. And it's sold for blah, 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 or it's
Yeah.
pending at. And
Yeah.
you can say it was really worth the value. Or you're at a listing appointment and they're talking about the house that's sold 2 doors down from them and they think their house is better than that one. And you're like, there's a delicate way of saying it, but you could say, you know what? That house was completely replumbed, rewired,
Yeah.
new roof, new windows. You have the original 1920s windows. And, there's things like that that you can
Sure.
really wrap your mind around and you can talk intelligently to your sphere, potential client, whoever.
Yep. Yep. Really
And you
good
get to
point.
learn more. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure. You're prepared to have that conversation with your neighbor about a house that you've gone through. This is what we do for a living. So,
mhm,
not knowing the inventory really puts you at a disadvantage. And then being able in a listing appointment to not just look at a computer, which by the way, every one of our clients can do, right? We have
totally.
all the information available to everybody now. So this isn't sort of a secretive proprietary group. Everybody can see what we see. So you have to go and be bigger and more than what they can do in their underwear at 2 a.m. on a computer. We can all do that, right? And then I would just add to it to say the relationships that you build by meeting other brokers at their brokers open, right? Whether you're
Oh,
touring
totally.
with your colleagues or you're going to a broker's open, that matters at the end of the day when you're in a multiple offer, right? And I went and saw Shelly's listing and I said hi to her and we chatted for a while. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I'm writing on one of her listings. That relationship that you build, I think matters a lot. Would you agree with that?
Oh, hugely. I don't know if necessarily a buyer or seller would understand that, but I think the
Right.
relationships we have with our peers is huge. And especially say you're in a multiple offer situation and you're the listing agent and you brought an offer, I could be like, I know how she works.
Yeah.
I know Mitzi, I know the lender, like all these things. Or I could be like, yes, and then you can communicate that to the seller and say this is solid. So there's so many different benefits.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Agreed.
And I've been touring on Saturdays if I don't have a sporting event and going to
Yeah.
open houses because it's easy to pop in. I want to see the activity. I want to know what they're doing at open houses, all the things.
All the
So
things. Yeah, you get great ideas too. If someone else starts to do something, you're like, oh, that's a good thing to add to my repertoire. Yeah, for sure.
totally.
So tour for people listening. If you don't tour or you've been, you're an older agent. Sorry, I shouldn't say older agent. I should say seasoned agent. Doesn't mean you're old, but you've been doing this quite a
Getting there.
while, and you sort of lost the zeal for touring, or you just don't have time because you have all this business. Get back to touring. It's important. And then the farming piece is also interesting to talk about for a minute. I go back and forth, Shelley, between farm and no farm. And one of the things I land on is if you're going to farm, you have to go for it and stick with it in order for
Oh,
it to have
absolutely.
any results. Yeah, because I get these flyers from random agents in my mailbox, and I get them for 2 months, and then they go away, and they just go in the recycling bin. So, talk to me about farming.
I feel that way too, but there's a couple agents that I've talked to and seen in the past who have done it year in and year out. And they have said that that was the great way that they've built their business. And I'm like, seriously, spending that much money? And they're like, yes, because I've sold in this neighborhood 4 or 5 alone. And then that's more than paid for the farm. And then it's continuing. And I'm not saying to do it necessarily immediately because it costs money and you have to earn money. Or if that's not your jam, find something that you can do consecutively
Yep,
all the time
definitely.
and have it be inexpensive.
That sort of leads to that, volunteering to find something that you maybe even can do with your kids. I mean, I know that's sort of hard, but what if there's something, if you're a parent and you're like, how do I fit all this in, right? Is there something you can do to give back that gets you in front of people in your community on a regular
Totally.
basis?
I mean, even coaching your kids' soccer team.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Coaching is great. If you're a church person, getting to church and having a community of faith that you see regular, I think the regular part is what we're going for here, right? It's consistency in all of it.
Well, and I feel like you have to do something that you enjoy. I'm almost an empty nester, and I've been like, there's got to be something else out there that I can do that I really, really enjoy. And it has nothing to do with real estate, but if it comes up,
Yep.
awesome.
For sure. You wish you would have done a farm, but you did some touring. And then you recognized, I think early on, open houses were your jam. And they were something that
Totally.
you really excelled at. And we're going to get there for a minute. But first, I want to go back. I remember when you first started, Shelley, and you started with your good friend, who's also still in the office.
Hmm.
And I remember this time when her business from the get-go just shot. I remember her first year just being insane, right? Like she had like however many deals and whatever. And I remember their conversations with you where you were like, well, okay, that's interesting. I'm not doing what she's doing. And what was so interesting, because she sort of like a cannonball shot out and sort of had all these transactions, she didn't really, and she and I have had this conversation, so this isn't a surprise, didn't really sort of have the foundation and set up a framework for consistent practice and behaviors. And
Hmm.
so, 2 years in, when her deals are closed and sort of things have slowed way down for her, and that blast has kind of come and gone, she's back to square one, saying, "Wait a minute, these were great, but I don't really know how to go find more, right?" And so she had to sort of come from at it from a different angle, having started off. Whereas you were the opposite of that, sort of starting slower, but then, boy, your foundation and all the things you were putting into time paid off. And so I guess I'm saying that out loud to say if you're listening to this podcast and saying you're one or the other of those, right?
Hmm.
Hang in there. For those of you that kind of shot with a cannon, get back to those basics. And for those of you like Shelley, who may have started slower, I mean, what does slower mean? I don't know. You probably did a great first year, but it wasn't that, oh
Oh,
my
it wasn't
gosh.
great. No, I have to say it was not great. It was
Okay.
super stress. It was stressful for me, and I think what it goes back to is what I was talking about with fear. I put the people that I really knew in my database and
Yeah.
marketed to them.
Yeah.
I would do it differently. I'd add more.
Do it all. Do them all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do them all.
Yeah. So let's go back to open houses. People know that one of the ways you can build a business in real estate is open houses. But you went for it. So what drew you to that? How did you figure out, I'm pretty good at this? And why do you think you started doing those and how did those contribute to your early success?
I think it was talking to you and to DB, Doug, who's now in Arizona and doing fantastically.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I need something to help kickstart what to do. And all of you said, why don't you try open houses? And so what I did is I went to brokers in the office that had stale listings. And I said, hey, will you give me a shot? I'm brand new. I didn't know what I was doing. Um, And I mean, we had classes and stuff like that. And I did shadow quite a few agents on open houses because I was, again, fear. I was like, what if I don't know what I'm doing? And honestly, you had to jump right in. You just got to do it. So I approached them and started doing them. And what I realized is that I'm super comfortable in a house. I understand the house. I research the house. I ask the questions. That's my turf. It's a level of confidence that you kind of need. The house has been in the market for a little bit. The people that are coming through the house, you have more time to chat. You have more time to build a rapport. They don't know you from Adam. And so if you have more time and you're not pushy, you have time to build that rapport. And then they can say, oh my gosh, I like you. Like, let's
Right.
continue this conversation. So
Hmm.
that's what I did. And then, like you said, I was a slow start. But then once you start getting listings, then you start marketing yourself before the open houses where you're dropping off letters saying, hey, come by and see me. I'm going to be here. And then you ask the neighbors to come an hour before. It's a really fantastic way to build your business. This is what I've done too, is that when I started doing open houses, I looked at price points. And there's so many people that are like, I'm going to do the $2.5 million listing. And I'm like, oh my God, give me the townhome for 750. Like
I love it.
I'm like, or give me the houses that are 800 to a million. And always look for other brokers that maybe out of area agents that don't want to do open houses wherever you live and focus on the same price point. You will run into the exact same people at every single one of those open houses.
Yep,
And then they
absolutely.
see you and they know you're working. They know you know that price point and they know you know the neighborhood. And that was huge for me. I was like, okay. So I think you got to be a little bit strategic about what you want. I mean, hey, if your goal is to be a luxury listing broker, by all means ask to do those. But I don't think that's necessarily my sphere. So I mean, I would love those, but I don't think that's my sphere.
Right.
And
It would be the one-off instead of the normal.
yeah,
Shelley said so many things. I was taking notes, and we're going to kind of go back to come up with some of them. But I teach an open house class. Many of you know that I teach courses, how to be successful at an open house. And she just said one of the things that I talk about, and obviously that's worked for her, and that is to say, pick a price point and stay consistent. And so some people are like, oh, okay, open houses. I'm going to go grab this one in Madrona and I'm going to grab this one in West Seattle. I'm going to be in Redmond, and one's for 1 million and one's for 2 million and one's for 500,000. And you're all over the map. And so instead of saying, I'm going to either focus on an area, like I'm only going to do West Seattle or I'm only going to do Finney Ridge, whatever, I'm going to stay in this price range and I'm always going to look for that, because what Shelley just said is so important. These buyers are walking in and they've missed out on a sale or two, let's say, and they're like, there she is again. Like everywhere we go, right? Every week
totally.
we see Shelley. And every time she's friendly and every time she has something, of value for us and information, and we're getting to know her. And, pretty soon we're like, we just want Shelley to work with us. We just really want her to represent us. And so there's so much to say about focusing on one particular price point or one particular area and being consistent. I love that. I love that you just said that.
There's a couple newer agents in my office, one in particular. He is killing it. He has adopted brand new townhome developments and he does them every weekend. And he, I think, probably got 7 sales last year just by doing those consistently. It's a commitment, but you got to choose what works for you. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. What works for you?
Yeah.
Exactly. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you. Doing the stuff that not everybody's doing. I mean, ninja, as we know, the ninja philosophy, it's essentially saying a lot of people are not going to do that thing consistently, whatever that thing is that you choose. So if you choose it and then do it consistently, you're already that much far ahead of the game for people to recognize it, right? Because it's not this one-off. There's a lot of ADD or ADHD in real estate agents.
For
And so
sure.
we're like, come here, we're going to do this for a while. We're going to over here and do this and squirrel and whatever. But if you can sort of stay consistent, watch what happens. Another thing that you pointed out, which I think is overlooked, is that neighbors hour before, or the nosy neighbor open house. Talk to us a little bit about why you do that practice.
So I usually only do those when they have my own listing. I do that because neighbors are so curious. They've been seeing the work being done, they've been seeing the people moving out or what have you. And for me, it's a great way to build rapport because they may want to list their house. You have them come over an hour before. It's fun to see all the neighbors chat with one another too, because then they're talking about even what they're going to do with their house. They may ask you for referrals for whatever. But it's a good way to put your name out there. And then they're seeing that you're going above and beyond, because if they go to sell their house, they're going to be like, I think I want that person because she's doing more than realtor B over here. I want to be realtor A, realtor. I want to be realtor A. So, and we do our business plans at the end of the year or whatever. And I was going back to look at past years, like my biggest years, where did I get the majority of my business? And I was like, it was listings. I did those. And I got like 5 buy and sell out of one listing because of doing those things.
Wow.
And I think you need to track it in a
For
way
sure.
to figure out. And you know what? Not every open house you're going to grab someone. And you may go like a year without grabbing someone from an open house. But I'll tell you what, the next time you do an open house and you could have met that person a year and a half ago, they're ready to buy.
Yep.
And they're
For
like,
sure.
there she is again.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Shelley's everywhere.
No.
I want to just for fun, because I'm a numbers person, I want to put in perspective what Shelley just said in terms of numbers. And I'm just going to play with them so don't freak out if they're not correct. From one neighborhood early open house that she was a listing agent and she had invite the neighbors, that ended up being 5 transactions. So on our average price point, I'm not saying this is exactly true because I don't know what transactions they were, but our average price point in King County is $1 million. And let's pretend you got 3% on all those. That's $150,000 open house.
Totally.
Just saying that out loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
$150,000 open house. Mm-hmm. So if someone told you, hey, if you do these regularly, it could amount to anywhere close to that, right? Even a fifth of that, $30,000 open house, you'd show up and you'd do it, right?
Honestly, I think it's part of our job. I've had brokers say to me, open houses don't sell a house. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So a good example is I had a higher price point listing. It was on the market for a long time, but I held that sucker open all the time. And the buyers came in right as I was locking up. They didn't even want to come in. The wife, well, actually the wife did. The husband was like, I didn't want to be here. And then he walked in, he was like, you've got to be kidding me. And they had been looking for a house for 2 years. And even if you're not getting the business and you have a listing and you're like, oh my God, I got to do another open house, do it. Because the past 3 listings I've had, the buyers have all come through without their agents and they've bought the house.
Wow.
So
okay.
I think there's a different perspective too. Even if you're not getting that business, but you're the listing agent and you've still done all those things, you're still doing your job in selling that house.
Got it.
I love your client.
I love that you just said that. They can sell a house for sure. And it's you working, right? It's you out in the field. It's you talking to people. You said, gosh, I didn't get a person today, I didn't collect any information, whatever, but you still practiced real estating when you're sitting there for 3 hours in an open house, right? You're getting better at asking questions. You're getting better at talking to people and asking them questions about what they're looking for. So I think it's time well spent in your industry by doing open houses.
Oh, I think so too, 110%. And say, well, even if no one comes in, put it on social media, you've got an open house. Do all your cards for that week. Work on that CMA that you've been putting off. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do.
Right.
And I mean, I've been bringing Bluetooth speaker too to my opens. And so it's like you can do your stuff, all your busy work, and still have a good mindset. Like, hey, I'm working. I'm still doing all the things.
Yeah,
Totally.
be in the business. That's so good. So when you look back, Shelley, 12 years now, I still can't believe that. If you were to point at one thing in your business that you think has been the most lucrative thing you've done, would it be open houses?
110%.
Okay. Okay. That's really built your
Mhm.
business.
Totally.
That's
And I
amazing.
still do them. Like, I do them all the time. I still do it. They're my favorite part of the business. I psych myself up for them.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do like the whole favorite music on in the car on the way, putting up my signs, put on your favorite outfit, do all the things.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love it. I
Hmm.
love it. That's fun. Now, for any of you listening that think, oh, I want to get a piece of that action, give Shelly a call and do a little shadow with her and do her little mindset, rock out in the car and wear your favorite outfit. These are all really important. I mean, we sort of say them in jest, but they're so important to set yourself up to say, this is going to be a great open house. And I'm going to rock this today. I'm going to collect some numbers and I'm going to make some new relationships. And maybe I'm going to write an offer on this house if it's not my listing. And coming into it that way, I think there's so many agents that are like, oh, I have to go do an open house, or I guess I have to do an open house on this. And boy, the difference that makes and the vibe that you put off when anybody's walking in, right? Is just like you're
Totally.
there, you're chained, you're a prisoner of the open house instead of like, can't wait to be here, can't wait to talk to you. That's a different vibe. Yeah.
There was a couple new agents recently. They both said, I'm not going to do an open house unless I get paid. And I was like, oh, no. It totally turned me off. And I thought to myself, okay. And I was talking to another broker in the office about it too, because we were like, it's a privilege to host someone else's open house. And that's the way I look at it. It's a privilege. Inventory is down. There's not as many houses out there.
I
And
like it.
and what I realized too is that a lot of listing agents, you got to make the calls to get that open. And I think you should have the mindset is, I'm not going to get paid for this, and that's okay. It's a privilege that I get to hold someone else's open. They're trusting me with their livelihood because they earned that listing. And they're trusting me to go in there and be professional, know my stuff, and to potentially sell the place. So I don't think new agents should look at it as a negative thing.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
It's a privilege.
It's a privilege. I love that. That is really well said. Having an opportunity, and let's go back to that trust just for a minute because I have had brokers that have asked to hold open my listings, and I regretted it as a listing agent because I didn't vet them very well. And so, from a listing agent side, and I know you know this now for your own listings, if you can't hold it open, who you choose is so important, right,
Oh,
for representing
absolutely.
that house. I went into an open one time with a buyer and there was somebody holding the open and he said something like, "Yeah, I can't believe that they priced it this high. That's ridiculous." So it isn't to say that you can't comment on price or have a question like, "What do you think of the price?" But to like openly disparage the price when you're the one holding the open feels like you're sort of like, "Wait a minute." And I thought, red flag, red flag.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're like, "No, no, 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 you are not holding my opens."
Totally, and
Yeah.
I even called that listing agent and said, "Hey, I just happened upon this. I thought you'd wanna know this, just because I don't think that's what you hope is going on out there, is that somebody's holding it open," and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I am so glad you called and told me that. Absolutely, he called me on a whim, and I just said yes, and I didn't vet him," and so it's all the more to the point to say, hey, figure out who you want to hold your house open because it matters about the energy they're putting out there for that house, right?
Oh, I think so too, and, think about it, the seller have put that much trust in
Yeah.
you to sell their home, and you can tell them, "I can't hold it open this weekend, I've got XYZ." So you need to be sure. You need to be
Pick it.
110 for sure.
Yeah, you're choosing carefully, right?
Totally, totally.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so that's awesome information. And I hope listeners, you've been taking notes too, or picking up on some of these gems in here about open houses. I want to move now to, let's say you're more established, you're 8, 9 years in, okay? And then up until now, sort of present. Let's talk to the people, the listeners on the call that said, gosh, I'm hitting sort of that plateau. I don't know what else to do to generate business. What have you found that's been successful outside of open houses that you think, gosh, this isn't maybe immediate results, but I know that over time, this is something that is good to invest in as a real estate agent that does eventually produce results?
Real estate reviews, hands down, and you hear people talk
Oh,
about them all the time. Last year, I did 45 or something in January. Do not recommend that. I was like so, so done by the time I was
yes.
done. But that but that generated 5 sales for me last year by doing the
Wow.
45. And
Wow.
really, I do ninja classes at the office every other week, and one of them was actually, it was last week, we talked about getting back down to the basics. The basics still work. One of the biggest return on investments are real estate reviews. They don't take that long. Once you get into the groove, do it and go through your database and look at, oh my gosh, okay, because you're 8 or 9 years in, right? That's kind of the cycle right now, too,
It
right?
is.
But
It's true.
so of people either upgrading or downsizing,
Yeah.
go through, do a real estate review, send it.
So Shelley, just for purposes of someone on the call that's like, what is that? Tell us what a real estate review is.
It's actually pretty broad. So it's an introductory letter that's saying, hey, I just do these for my clients every year. It doesn't even have to be client. It could be, it could be for my friends, family, whatever. And then basically like just some tips and some things that are happening in the market. You decide what you want that intro letter to look like. And then what I do is do like maybe a Matthew Gardner, predictions or what have you. And then I usually do the realist report. We've been in it long enough. We kind of know a price point of where their house is. So I do a range. And then I just pull a range of houses in their neighborhood that have sold in the past year. It's not exact, it's not a science. I put those in there. And then I basically do a Windermere Foundation, bridge loans, and like a Windermere Ready. And we get these templates too, actually. But you can adjust them and do whatever you want because there's so many people I think do them, but they do them differently. So I just kind of put that together. It's probably 8 or 9 pages. And the letter too, I say, hey, if you'd like a more detailed copy of this, let me know. And we can dive down and get the real number. Because the chances are I probably haven't been in their house in a long time. So I don't know what upgrades and things that they've done. So it starts the conversation
Yep,
because they look at
absolutely.
that and they're like, okay, I know I've been following the market, but I didn't realize that house 3 blocks away went for this much. My house, I actually have done more upgrades and it's time. And then what I do too is that I mail it to them. I print it. I write a note. This year, I'm going to do a little gift with it too. And I'm only trying to do 2 to 4 a week, like the ninja, because it's too much.
Yeah.
Um, and then I send it to them electronically 2 weeks later or a week later and say, just in case, if you wanted an electronic copy, and then I can see if they've opened it. Because
Oh, I
hopefully
like that.
because then you're putting yourself in that front of mind again because there's some people that want the paper, there's some people that only want the electronic, and then they usually call you or follow up. And it could be even their neighbor or their sister or something, but
Absolutely.
I like right now I'm having a lender help me do like interest rates now versus what they were last year to see what the buying power is because there's actually more, not a lot, but there's more buying power, so I'm including that. You just got to think about what you want
I
and
love
what you
it.
want to achieve.
Yeah, and a couple things that Shelley said I liked about this for the listeners is to say you're giving them a range, so you're not doing a full CMA right now. You're sort of saying, hey, here's a snapshot of your neighborhood. Here's the range of which your home might be worth. I don't know of a person that exists that doesn't want information about the home they own. So for listeners, don't hesitate because even I love jumping on Redfin every now and then and seeing what Redfin thinks my home's worth, right? Like it's
Oh,
just
totally.
interesting information. So you can't go wrong with this. But then the follow up, I think, is what's key. Is what you said is so important, Shelley. Is to say I'm gonna mail you this with a handwritten note, and then I'm gonna call you and follow up and say, did you get it? Would you like the electronic copy? Do you have any questions about it? That piece right there, I think, is the piece that solidifies this whole activity because there's people out there that mail you stuff all the time, right?
You're
Oh,
like,
yep, you
whatever.
get this,
Yeah.
it's automated, right? But it's the, hey, this was actually specific and personal to you. And I'm going to say, did you get it? And is there anything you want to find out about? And 5 sales. I mean, you just said it that resulted in getting them good information and then following up to say, what else do you want to know? And them saying, wow, I didn't know our home was worth this much, or I think we're actually ready now that we've seen this. It may have been something that was stirring in their head, and now you just kind of, push the needle over to the other side. So I love that. I love that practice, and I think it's great that you're pointing to that as a big part of how you get listings. So that's cool.
You have to go back to the basics. I think there's a lot of agents that have left the industry and I think there's people who are looking to buy and sell and they don't know where to go. And again, that means adding more people to your database and kind of just putting yourself out there. And an annual review is focused on them, like you said. You put the effort into just them. It's not
Yeah,
like a broad mailer of,
yeah.
you know.
It's
So
specific. Yeah, it's
yeah.
specific to them. I like it. I like it. Well, before we wrap up, I hope everybody listening has gotten a lot out of this. I sure have. It's so fun. It's always fun to talk to you, Shelley. I really
Yep,
like
you
you. You're a
too.
cool
I like you
person.
too. Thank you.
And I really do respect your business. And I love that the open house stuff and this last thing about real estate reviews. But before we go, is there anything else that you think, gosh, looking back over these last 12 years, I'm really glad that I did that, or I wish I wouldn't have done that, just as advice to people listening into this call?
I think the biggest thing is consistency. I know you're a big fan of Ninja too. We both are. I mean, that's kind of how we were both, I guess, brought up in the industry. And I truly believe that you have to do your Ninja 9, your notes, your annual reviews, your 50 forwards, and build your database. And I think you have to be consistent with that because that's what's building your business. I'm really working on time blocking and I've been pretty good about it through the years, but I know I need to be better about it. Don't buy stupid leads. Don't spend money on those gimmicks. I think that's just a waste of money. I think you are your best investment in doing like the ninja. Like I said, I wish I would have done a farm, but I think there are other ways to do it. I think that would have been a side thing and kind of like it's done out of mind and then focus on the Ninja 9. Just be consistent.
I'm going to ask you a question and then give you a second to think about it. But can you think of a strange or weird or funny circumstance in your real estate career of 12 years? So I'll give you a minute to think about that while I'm saying this to everybody. We keep referencing Ninja, and I want to make sure anybody that's new on the call that's listening says, what's Ninja? It's a company in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's called The Group, and they came up with a philosophy called Ninja Selling. It is the best training I've ever been to, hands down, in my now 22 years of doing this. So if you're interested in it, just Google Ninja Selling. Kendall is the guy who started it, actually in reference to another broker at that firm. But it's expanded and grown, and there's so much richness. And if you're looking for something to say, what's my business plan? What am I going to do in real estate? Because I think a lot of offices are like, get out there, kiddo, and take on the world, and you can do it. But they don't really offer anything of substance. Ninja is definitely full of substance. So check it out, Ninja Selling. And they didn't pay me for that, folks. That's just my own love of that philosophy, and definitely what I practice. Okay, Shelley, have you thought of something that's sort of weird?
Well, it's weird and creepy.
Ooh, better yet.
Oh my God, but there's so many weird things. There's so many
Yes.
weird things that happen.
Yes.
And this happened this summer, and it was in West Seattle, and I'm out touring with two of my most favorite clients of all time. I've sold now 4 or 5 houses for them. It doesn't matter. And we're looking at this house, and we can't find the lockbox. And I'm looking at, Home Spotter. I'm like, God, where's the lockbox? So we go back in the backyard, and then we all stop. Totally naked man, like just oh my god,
Ow my eye.
We finally get in the house and we're all like, oh my god, what's happening? And I'm like the things you cannot unsee.
No,
like
you can't unsee that. No.
But then we get in the house and I'm like, oh my god, there's a hot pan on the stove.
Whoa.
Oh my god, like the staging has been taken off, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. And then it just kept getting worse. And so the husband of the couple is like, well, I'm going to go look around. I'm like, I'm not going upstairs. I'm not going in the garage.
Yeah, don't want to see anything else. Yeah.
No. And I'm like, I'm going to call the listing agent because this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So then I go outside to call the listing agent to say, hey, is someone here? This is really awkward and weird. Then there's a woman down the street who's walking up to her house going, you have poopy pants. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst showing of all time.
And yet the most entertaining, right? We love it.
Oh my God, we were just dying.
So you'll never forget it. And you bonded with those clients because now you'll have this experience in common that you can't forget, right? I love it.
Oh, every time we see them, we go, poopy pants.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. It's a shared language that you have. I love it.
So sorry, that was really weird.
Perfect. No, it's so great. I love to keep it lively. So thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. It's so good to talk to you. And thank you for all your words of wisdom. Great to see you. Thank you so much for listening into Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.